Honor.
My honor.
Without honor.
Dishonor.
Honor.
Honor.
You'll bring honor to us all.
Honor has taken the center stage in many stories and has been the defining struggle for many characters. In each of these stories, it is considered slightly differently, but the central message is almost always about behaviors, actions, and achievements that bring honor to oneself and to their kin. Ghost of Tsushima is one such story. I just started playing the second game in the series, the newly released Ghost of Yotei, and so naturally I think about the first game and the precedence it set for this one. I did not play Ghost of Tsushima when it was released, but I watched a walkthrough of the game, courtesy of Typical Gamer. And so on this episode, we'll be looking at the nature of honor within the narrative and how it was interpreted by the characters Jin Sakai and his uncle Lord Shimura. Greetings, explorers. Welcome to Save Point Parables, the show that welcomes and honors you without requiring you to capture the avatar first.
I must find the avatar to restore my honor.
This is the parable of the Honorable Ghost. In Ghost of Tsushima, the narrative follows Jin Sakai, a samurai who has been raised by the Bushido Code, as he is transformed from a noble samurai to the Ghost of Tsushima. The Bushido Code is the way of the samurai that is characterized by fighting with honor, protecting the weak, and remaining dutiful towards one's lord. Honor is one of the 7 virtues they live by. The others include Gi, integrity, Yu, courage, Jin, compassion, Rei, respect, Makoto, truth, and Shugi, which is loyalty. Jin's transformation was centered around the samurai code of fighting with honor, which means facing your enemy head-on in fair combat, so the better warrior wins. However, when Jin is faced by an enemy in the person of Khotun Khan, the leader of the Mongol army who cares nothing about the code of honor, utilizing underhanded tactics like psychological warfare and relying on overwhelming force, Jin faces an uphill war alone and quickly realizes that holding on to his code of honor is not enough to keep the Mongol army from wiping his island and taking over. And so he chooses an alternative, more effective path, the path of stealth and fear. This is visually represented in most stories by contrasting the way of the samurai with the way of the ninja, which are sometimes presented as honorable and dishonorable, respectively. In stories like Ghost of Tsushima and Mulan, a person, by their actions, can bring honor upon oneself and their kin, and conversely, they can bring dishonor as well.
Dishonor. Dishonor on your whole family. Make a note of this. Dishonor on you. Dishonor on your cow.
Which is true to some extent. There are certainly things that you can do to bring dishonor and shame to you and those close to you. But here's where semantics complicate things a bit. There seems to be a running theme of equating dishonor to shame and honor to pride, I presume. But I don't believe that to be the case. Our dear Uncle Iroh from the show Avatar: The Last Airbender, the greatest show ever to be created, yes, I will die on this hill. Uncle Iroh says pride is not the opposite of shame, but its source. I want you guys to think about that statement as we continue. In most stories, when someone is told you have brought dishonor upon yourself, the word dishonor can be replaced with shame and the meaning of the sentence would not change at all. This could be just the difference in semantics, but let's think about it. Dishonor and shame go hand in hand most times, but honor and pride don't. Zuko's story and his quest to regain his honor addresses the difference between pride and honor. It starts when Zuko speaks out against a general's war plan in the Fire Lord's war room, and in doing so disrespected the Fire Lord. His punishment? To face the Fire Lord in an Agni Kai, a fire duel fought to the death or till one duelist surrenders. This is probably the right time to mention that Zuko is really Prince Zuko, the Fire Lord's first son. Yeah, this guy forced his son to fight him in a duel to the death or to surrender. As you'd guess, Prince Zuko refused to fight his own father, and this was apparently dishonorable. Then the Fire Lord proceeded to burn Zuko's face, branding him for life. To Zuko, his scar was a mark of shame. The disgraced prince, now cursed to wander the world in search of the Avatar, who disappeared 100 years ago and has not been seen since. When he captures the Avatar, his honor would be restored. This is what his father said to him, effectively holding his honor captive till he completes a practically impossible task, running around the world on a wild goose chase for his honor.
Wait! What's that? I think it's your honor.
Where?
Yes, this is apparently an appropriate punishment for backing down from an Agni Kai. In this case, Zuko's honor entirely depended on his father's decision. He carried his disgrace everywhere he went, always feeling like he was inadequate, like he would never amount to anything.
I want my father not to think I'm worthless.
His own father thought nothing of him. This filled him with rage and resentment as time went on. This very wrong definition of honor is what Zuko went on to let go of as his character arc progressed. One of the most important questions that Zuko had to answer was asked by Uncle Iroh. Is it your own destiny, or is it a destiny someone else has tried to force on you? Zuko, for his entire life, never felt wanted or acknowledged by his father, and that's what every son really wants. So, when he was given the quest of capturing the Avatar to restore his honor, he truly thought that if he did that, his father would finally be proud of him, and that he'd finally be rid of the shame of the banished prince. But after everything had transpired, he realized that his father, the man who compared him to his sister, saying that she was born lucky and that he was lucky to be born, this man who challenged his 13-year-old son to a duel, burnt his face and banished him to search for and capture the most powerful person in the world. This man cared nothing about him or his honor. How can a man who commits these atrocities define what is honorable for another man? His father was the leader of a nation that invades and conquers other nations, killing and taking captives. The Fire Nation completely wiped out the Air Nomads, and they were proud of that. What the Fire Lord meant by Zuko's honor was for Zuko to be able to stand side by side with him as they burnt the world to the ground. But instead, with the help of Uncle Iroh, Zuko found his honor in having compassion, helping the oppressed, and helping the Avatar to take down the tyrant that is the Fire Lord. In Ghost of Tsushima, Jin's honor is questioned when he chose what was the only path to survival and victory, a path which his culture considered dishonorable and shameful. Had he not chosen to transition from a samurai to the ghost, his people would have surely been wiped out. The victory he won was an important one, and yet there were people who would shame him for how he won that victory. I'm not trying to argue that the end justifies the means. We know that that's not true in many cases. But what I'm trying to point out is that had Jin followed a definition of honor which was being imposed on him by other people, he would not have been able to win against the Mongol army. Jin had to look within himself and ask himself the same question. This code of honor he's expected to live by, is it his, or is it being imposed on him by someone else? And much like Zuko, Jin followed a path to honor that was led by doing the right thing with what he had in the situation he found himself in. Except unlike Zuko, Jin's situation and his decision was not as simple as this man invades nations, burns them down, killing many and taking many others captive, men, women and children alike. This is bad. So, I will join these other guys who have shown me great kindness even though I've caused them harm multiple times, and I will help them free the world from the clutches of this tyrant. No, Jin's conflict was more complicated because there was truth to the samurai code of honor, and there was also good to be found in bending the code. But which is true honor? Let's break it down a little bit. Picture this: you are a warrior raised in a community where fighting with honor is one of your most highly held tenets. You grew up learning what that means, what's the difference between fighting with honor and dishonorable combat. You, as well as others, follow this code rigorously, meeting the enemy at the battlefield, never raising your sword against civilians and non-combatants, letting your enemies be fully prepared before beginning a fight. No psychological warfare, no enemy camp infiltrations, always accepting surrender and not killing an unarmed soldier. Then one day your country is invaded by a ruthless enemy who cares nothing for your code or fair and honorable combat. They head straight for your villages, burning down buildings, killing civilians, destroying your food stores and your resources, and even the soldiers that you meet at the battlefield use underhanded tactics, overwhelming force, and weapons of mass destruction to quickly devastate your army and overrun your country. You survive this first encounter, and when you recover, you see how bad things are for your people. There are enemy strongholds where small villages used to be. The original civilian inhabitants have either been killed, imprisoned, or enslaved to cater for their new masters. Your army has been gutted, and there only remains a few warriors resisting, but not for long. Soon the fall of your country will be complete. You look around at all this and you have only two options. 1. Rejoin what's left of your army and wait to face this enemy head-on the battlefield for one final stand for your country. Or 2. Adapt. You can't face this enemy head-on in fair combat. You are hilariously outnumbered, and this enemy does not fight fair. So you should weed them out strategically until their numbers are few, and then have your final stand with their leader. The first option, you fight and die by the honor code, because there isn't actually a chance that you defeat this enemy in a head-on battle. So the last of your warriors and protectors will fall, and the suffering of your people will continue. But at least you did not compromise your integrity. The second option is still difficult, but you actually stand the chance against this enemy. It will require you to betray your code of honor, becoming something else. You will have to take a serious look at your code and see what aspects you can bend in order to save your people who are suffering. You either do this, or you stand by and watch them suffer as you live by your code, then dying when the enemy fully takes over, ultimately being useless to the people you've trained your entire life to protect. Option 2 seems the obvious choice, but it was not an easy one for Jin. He had to become something else to the enemy. He had to become the ghost, one whose legend goes before him, putting fear into the hearts of the enemies to the point where they are already psychologically broken before he reaches their camp. To embody this kind of fear and make it possible for him to beat 20 enemy soldiers in a fight alone at once, he had to use methods that do not constitute an honorable battle. Killing enemies who haven't even acknowledged his presence yet, using fire arrows, poison darts, using small bombs and smoke bombs to make the enemies believe that he was not a human, rather a force of nature, a spirit of vengeance, a ghost. This is what Jin Sakai did, and it worked. His legend grows so much that he wins the fight the moment he shows up in an enemy camp, because they are all gripped by fear. As the players, we are all on Jin's side. I'm yet to talk to anybody who played the game and agreed with Lord Shimura. Some people might not agree with some of the things Jin did to accomplish this, but it wasn't like he was out there killing civilians and destroying their livelihoods in the name of survival. He held on to what was right while snuffing out an evil that had invaded his land. He just had to become something else in order to provide that protection and become a liberator. And remembering Uncle Iroh's words, I don't think holding on to his rigid way of fighting while watching his people suffer would have been honorable. In fact, I think it would have been prideful of him to do so. Take Lord Shimura for example. He was willing to suffer defeat and death, and to let the people he was sworn to protect endure suffering under a ruthless enemy. That's not maintaining your honor, that's pride and arrogance. He'd rather maintain his status and title than do his duty to his people and get rid of this invading army. He remained a noble samurai, and if the people suffered and died, they suffered and died.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
That's my perspective, at least.
You sent our men to die.
They are soldiers.
Their blood is on our hands.
Jin let go of that rigid way of thinking, realizing that this was not about him at all. If he would be disgraced and called dishonorable, but he saved his people and destroyed the Mongol army, then so be it. He went down this path of moral sacrifice, and what he found at the end was, in my opinion, true honor. Not one propped up by self-righteousness, but one marked by sacrifice, compassion, dutiful vengeance, and doing the right thing no matter the cost to his own reputation.
You risked your life for them.
They couldn't defend themselves. And I can't let more of our people die.
It's important to recognize the situations you find yourself in and make decisions accordingly. What's honoring will be different in different set of circumstances. Before I continue, I want to point out that this video was inspired by another YouTube video by the creator Muffin495. His own video will be linked in the description, so check it out after this one. Throughout this episode, we've explored what brings honor to oneself. But I think the biblical concept of honor is more about other people than ourselves. It talks more about how we honor other people than what we can do to bring honor to ourselves. So, what does the word even mean? As Adam Ramsey describes in his book, Honor fundamentally means to value rightly and treat with appropriate value and respect, especially towards authority. Biblical honor goes to God above all else, then to those in positions of authority over us, then to each other as the body of Christ. Side note, this part of the video is heavily influenced by the book Honor by Adam Ramsey. It is one of the 8 books in the Love Your Church series. I highly recommend them. So, we are commanded to honor God, Revelations 4:11, to honor our parents, Exodus 20, verse 12, to honor the elders and leaders in our church, 1 Timothy 5:17, to honor our employers and managers in the workplace, Ephesians 6, verse 5, to honor our civil leaders in the government, 1 Peter 1, verse 17. Then we have honor directed outward too, and not just upward. Husbands are to show honor to their wives, 1 Peter 3:7. And finally, we are commanded to honor everyone, 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 17. Honor exalts and rejoices over others. It magnifies, gives weight and importance to God and to others. When we recognize and honor God and His glory, we recognize that same glory within others, as we are all made in the image of God. As we can see, honor is not something to be grasped by oneself, but rather something to be ascribed to others. Whenever honor is grasped, especially by those in authority, its meaning is perverted and it becomes a tool of manipulation. There are 2 different ways this can manifest. The first is the false prosperity theology that makes God out to be some sort of wish-granting cosmic being that will grant all our heart's desires as long as we have enough faith. People are led to believe that honor is something you do to attract the blessings of God and guarantee that God will grant all our desires. This is inherently self-serving, where people serve God only as a way to improve their lives, instead of honoring God out of profound reverence, respect, and love for who He is. The second perverse honor practice is when those in authority in our churches use it to elevate themselves, their comforts and power, and dehumanize those under their authority, all at once. You can see this in the way these pastors and so-called leaders talk to and treat people under them. Under the guise of honoring your spiritual leaders, church members and workers are borderline enslaved, treating these pastors as though they are deity. Some go to the extent of using their church members for domestic chores and having them believe that there is guaranteed blessing to be had from that. Now, I think there is a place for service to your church leaders, but it should be done voluntarily, without grumbling and expectancy, and with reasonable limits. Another perversion of honor in our churches is when leaders cannot be held accountable for their wrongdoings because they must be honored. Therefore, calling out their misdeeds is not permitted. All these betray the biblical definition of honor. According to the Bible, we honor Christian leaders who are honorable, but when our leaders act dishonorably, we honor God by calling said leaders to repentance and removing them from the positions of power, all while not dehumanizing them. Mark 10 verse 42 to 45. Jesus called them together and said, "You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as ransom for many. Honorable leaders are marked by humility. Remember, pride is not the opposite of shame, but its source. Selfishness is the source of dishonor. Only in true humility can shame and reproach be cleansed and honor restored. Jin Sakai refused to make it all about him bringing honor to himself. Rather, he sought to protect people who could not protect themselves, honoring them and thereby honoring himself. To honor is to practice Philippians 2 verses 3 to 4. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. Jin Sakai never lost his honor.